So I always tell them in the book, hey, I don't understand this, but I'm putting it out there. See if you can get anything out of it. But each book gets more and more complicated. But let me give you an example, because one thing I'm going to focus on tonight is the new earth we're moving into. But I want to get you some of these background first. Let me give you an example of one of the first things they told me that I was really, just when I think I have everything all figured out, is when they throw another curve at me. Even in the early days, I had reincarnation all figured out. I understood how it worked, and no problem. Then they threw in a concept I'd never heard of before. And it was like, well, wait a minute now, I've got it all figured out. You're throwing something in here, you're messing with my mind, you know. I don't understand this, because it was totally opposite of what I believed. And then I got to thinking, if I didn't at least examine it, I wasn't any better than the church that says, this is what you believe, don't ask any questions, don't look any further. So I began looking at these new concepts, and as hard as they were to digest, they began to make some sense. Then I'd get another one and another one. And that's what I mean by spoon feeding me. A lot of people say they want to read my books in the order I wrote them, and they can see my evolution that I went through. But one of the things that they told me that was really hard to understand had to do with parallel universes and parallel lives. But I'll start out simple. Okay, they said, when all of us come to crossroads in our lives, we all do. A time in your life when you have to make a decision. You can go one way or the other. You can either maybe you want to get married, maybe you want to get divorced, maybe you want to get a different job, maybe you want to move. You know, we all come to those points in our lives as part of living. We have to make a decision. Do I go this way or do I go that way? And you all know if you would have gone the other way, your life would be totally different, wouldn't it? When you look back on it and said, well, if I would have made that other decision, I'd be doing this and this now. And sometimes it's better and sometimes it's not. But we all know that. Okay, we decide we're going to go this way. What happens to the energy we put into the other decision? Energy is alive. Energy creates. Everything is energy. Everything. Now, we decide to go this way. What happened to the other decision that you'd put so much energy in thinking, should I do that? What happens to that energy? What? The other reality is also created. You created it because you were thinking about it. In the other reality, another you is living out the other reality. That's the simple way. It is not only big decisions. They said it happens every single time you make even the smallest decision. Should I go to the store or should I stay home? Should I cross the street or should I stay on this side of the sidewalk? Every time you make any decision at all, it splits again. And another you is acting out these other worlds and other decisions. And that can blow your mind. That's why you don't know about it. Can you imagine what that would be like if you knew all these things? And plus you have all your past lives, you have all your future lives, and this is all the probable things that are happening to you in this life. That's what they said. That's why we cannot know everything. We must focus on this life, this decision, this reality we created right here. Because to know the other things, we can't handle it. Our minds are just not capable of doing it. I have some people come to me who have had glimpses of what they think are their other selves, living in another city or something, and they kind of peek in on them sometimes. Well, that's very unusual, but that means they are having access to the other reality that their other part is living out. Now, see, so that's why I don't bring up some of these things at every conference, every lecture, because it's a little hard to digest, a little hard to understand. So I tell people, just let it, I said, treat it as mind candy, something to think about. You don't have to take it too seriously, but it is what they said happens. We focus on this one right now because this is the one we're living right now. But you can create any reality you want. Your mind is that powerful. You are a creator. Everything in your life you have put there. You have created and put there. A lot of people don't like to hear that because their lives are not exactly that good. And they said, what do you mean? I made myself miserable. I married the wrong guy and all these awful things happening. They have put in their life, you do, for whatever reason. Maybe it's karma. Maybe you're paying back for mistakes in another life. But you created the mess that you're in. If you realize that, you created your reality, that you can uncreate it by focusing on what you really want. What is it you really want to do? What do you really want to create? And that will be your reality. When you realize the mind is that powerful. And I've done whole lectures on just that subject because everything in my life, with my company, with my books, I've created it myself. So I know you can do it once you really know what you want to do. And you got to know what you want to do. You can't be vague. That's what a lot of people say, well, I'd like this, but you got to be specific down to the last detail, then you can have what you want in your life. You can create your own reality. But anyway, all these other probable selves out there, I always say I wish them luck anyway. Somewhere there's another me that never went into any of this. Probably still doing volunteer work in the hospital and staying home cooking, and I wish her luck, but I think she'd be boring, PMH has probably several other selves that didn't do this at all, But this is what we're focused on right now. Maybe it all comes together, I think it does, at the end when we finally all get back anyway. But these are things I wanted you to know because they're going to be coming up when I get to the new earth. Okay. Now, I've done whole lectures on life after death and what happens when you die, and I wrote the book Between Death and Life about how it feels when you die, where you go, and what it's like on the other side, the whole cycle. But what I have found, we all originated with God. We all originated with the same place. Now, I am having more and more people now who, instead of going into past lives, are going back to the source. They always call it the source. The source is the same thing that we call God. They're not bothering with past lives anymore. And I thought that was strange because all these years, it was always going back to past lives. Now they're not. When I put them under, they will go back to their beginning, when they were with God, when they were with the source. They all describe it the same way, which I think is amazing enough. And it is so wonderful, it's beyond belief. But maybe that's what we're supposed to be knowing now at this time, what it's really all about. But we started with the source. And even though some people a while ago was talking about they don't believe in the Big Bang, something happened where we all exploded out and we left the source. And all you really are is a spark. A tiny, tiny spark that left God. And when it comes right down to it, it's just that little tiny spark, and many, many people see themselves that way. And they'll see when they're with the source, it's total happiness. It's a feeling they can't describe. There's so much love. It's always described as a huge light. Some of them call it the great central sun. You've probably heard that expression. but it is always a huge, bright light. And they are in the light, and they feel so comfortable there. It's such a love that you can't even imagine, and they don't want to leave. And so I keep saying, well, if it's so beautiful, why did you leave? They said, because God needed a knowledge. And they sent us out as sparks to accumulate knowledge, to bring knowledge back to him. And we were sent on our journeys. In this way, we're like cells in the body of God. We have to travel through every possible situation, every possible life, every possible universe, planets, everything you could imagine, and accumulate knowledge and bring that back. And that when we return to God is with everything we have learned in all of the lives we've ever experienced. That's when you can go home. And they always say, I want to go home, because they want to go back to the source. But every one of them, sometimes they start crying. They'll say, I'm home. It's so beautiful, it's so wonderful. And when they're there, they're all together. It's a wonderful togetherness. And when they are sent out as the spark, they're separated and they're lonely. They don't like it. And there's always that yearning sometimes in people, I want to go home. They don't know where home is, but they know it's not here. And it's that feeling of separatedness and being lost, so to speak. And you don't know how many emails and letters I get from people like that they don't want to be here. So you start out on your journey. You have to be everything. You have to experience everything before you can go back. It is a school. Earth is a difficult school. It's one of the hardest. They said Earth is a challenging planet. But you come here to mostly learn emotions and limitations. And a lot of other planets don't have to learn that. It's a planet that was given free will to see what you would do with it. And they sit there and shake their heads at what we're doing with it, because they cannot interfere. They have to allow us to make our own mistakes. And that's part of the free will. And we have to keep going and going, and that's what the learning is about. You make a mistake, hopefully you're not going to make the same mistake again, but you come back again. It's a school where you can skip a grade, but you can't I got that wrong. It's a school where you have to take a grade over, but you can't skip a grade. You can't go from kindergarten to college. You've got to take it step by step. If you don't pass the grade the first time, you're going to have to take it over again. And that's where people have the same things in their life again and again and again, and they keep drawing the same things to them. And until they figure out what it is they're trying to learn from that situation, it's going to keep happening in their life. Then when they finally figure it out, then things will change in their life. Oh, okay. They draw the same kind of men in their life. I have a lot of women doing that, and other things like that. They keep having the same kind of jobs that they hate. Same situation over and over again until finally they'll say, all right, I don't need this, and they can move on. Then you go to the next lesson, which may or may not be easier. We don't know. But I tell people, you all have bad things happening in your life. Everybody does. But what did you learn from it? They don't even think about that. If you learned even one thing from that horrible thing that happened to you, that was what it was all about. Even one thing. So you think about it. We all have bad things, but then if you understand what it was trying to teach you, then that's what it's all about. Because they say there is no bad, there is no good, it's only energy. And what we do with the energy, and how we make mistakes and learn from them and go on to something else. And it's more complicated than that, but I don't want to spend too much time on that. I spoke for hours on just these little pieces I'm putting in here. Okay. But anyway, as you start out on your journey, you have been around forever. You were created in the very beginning. Everyone was created at the same time. You've been around forever. Earth is a young planet over here, isolated on purpose in this part of the galaxy. They don't want us to contaminate the rest of them out there. They don't want our violence to spread. They don't want us to do anything to the rest of the galaxy. So we're isolated over here on purpose. Now, this is just one of the schools you chose to come to. Before this, you've lived on other planets, other dimensions, places where you didn't even have a body. It was just an energy body. I've had every kind of life form you could imagine that people have gone into. Then finally you decide to come to Earth, and it's challenging here. They get here and they say, what was I thinking about? They said, this is horrible. They don't want to be in this body because they said it's slow, it's dense. They said, other places I could think and I could have things happen instantaneously. What am I doing in this slow, dense world where nobody knows what's going on? Another thing I want to bring in before I forget, you know what they said, one of the big lessons of Earth is, when you come in, the memories are erased, as I was talking about with Grant. It's done that way on purpose. You've got to come in as a clean slate. I asked them one time, I said, wouldn't it be easier if we knew what we were coming in for, if we knew our relationships with other people, wouldn't that make it easier? They said, no, it wouldn't be a test if you knew the answers. Other planets, other beings, when they come to other planets, they remember the source. They remember God. They remember why they came. They remember all of their lives. Earth, they don't. They said, you come in here, a blank slate, start off fresh. They say, what greater test than to have people think they're all alone? What would they accomplish if they thought they were all alone and didn't have anybody else out there? That's one of the big tests of living on Earth. And you have to find your way back, which I think is what we're doing now. We're becoming more aware, the metaphysics, we're becoming more aware of this other worlds. It's not with the church. They say so much and they stop. But we're beginning to open up and know these things now. We're beginning to find our way back by ourselves. And that's what they want us to do, to think for ourselves and get back. I always tell people at a lecture, don't believe what I say. Don't believe what anybody else says. Think for yourself. Read and ask lots of questions. Then make up your own mind. If somebody tells you, I have the truth, the only truth, run the other way. Nobody has the truth. My truth is different than yours. But you find your own, ask questions, and then come to your own conclusions. That's what it's about, using your mind. But we have to find our way back. And sometimes it can take many, many lifetimes. We build karma. We have to come back and repay the karma time and time again. We get stuck, they said, in the muck and the mire, the mud. We get stuck in that. They said it's like flypaper. And we have to keep coming